Welcome to Beans, Brews and Bread for sowing in February. What can you get sown now to get some crops for early spring? Let's go and have a look. So there's loads to be getting on with now in February. They're getting towards the end of winter officially. Spring is very close around the corner. If you've got somewhere you can start germinating in the house or under cover in a heated greenhouse, or you've got a propagator which is heated, you can start getting a few things now sown just to get that ever so slight advantage on getting some things out on the plot. If you can try and get them grown now, and you do put them out, do be aware that you will need some kind of protection for any frost, which we still can get all the way up to sort of April, and depending on May, depending on where you're in the UK. But do just bear in mind that anything now, a little bit of a challenge, but it's worth thinking about some things that you might be able to get sown. More often than not, a bit of a trial, but if you can get that little edge on the season, start getting your crops a little bit earlier. So I'm starting to sow. We've done all the things in January. You can still start all the things we were sowing in January, so your chilies, your aubergines, your long season warm weather crops, which require quite a bit of heat to germinate, but have a very long season, particularly in the UK. You want to hit that ground running when the last frost has gone, get those crops in the ground, but obviously you do have to look after them and keep looking after them until they can be strong enough to go out and not get mullered by the frost. But now February, we start thinking of a few other items that can get germinated now. You're bringing them on a little bit, and then you're trying to get them out onto the plot if the weather's good, or if you can get a bit of protection on them, like some fleece or some cloches. Little video of me putting a cloche up and just about succeeding in not slicing all my fingers off. I'll put a card up here and you can watch that. But now it's February, get some of these sown and see what I'm going to sow for this month. So, and this is mostly probably for things like shoots rather than possibly peas later on, but early varieties of peas. This one here is Meteor, which is a dwarf variety. Really nice. Should in theory be able to stand relatively cold temperatures to germinate, but you might want to start them off probably indoors. I've tried mine in an unheated greenhouse, and they have started to germinate just about now. So the temperatures, with the warmth of the sun in the day in the greenhouse, is starting to germinate these peas. Anything you do now, probably likely to start for shoots for salads. But as you start going through the month, you start getting into the latter part of February into March. That's when, if you do start planting them out, they should hopefully romp away, and you'll start getting some plants for pods. So peas, early variety, Meteor, that's a good one to start with. And then obviously you start getting some main season varieties like your Kelfram Wonder and Hurst Green Shaft and things like that. So Meteor, first early peas, February. Also, your cabbages, you can get these in propagator, small trays. Probably start off in trays rather than in cells for now, because you'll prick them out and pop them on. But cabbages, we've got here a Legerdiek 4, which I think is a Dutch variety. That strictly is saying sow indoors, mostly all the way through February and halfway into March. So that's a great variety for early cabbages. Do remember though, you will start thinking about netting these, making sure the birds, the pigeons aren't going to have a go at them once they start getting transplanted out. Also watch out for your club root. Make sure that you're getting your ground limed so that you're helping them, beat the dreaded club root. Also, we want to think about cabbage collars for cabbage root fly. Things love to eat cabbages other than just us. So just bear in mind, as you're transplanting them on, make sure you've got some protection to get them covered when you actually plant them out. Another one, apparently strictly said you could do these in January, but I've never had much success with Brussels sprouts at all, let alone sowing them starting in January. But this is a variety here called Evesham Special. Starting them off early is great because they do have a very long season anyway. Early sowings, I believe, are probably better for things like their leaves. Their leaves taste great, other than just their button, little Brussels sprout cabbage heads. But the earlier you start them in the season, try them for almost like a collard green, and use them as the harvest. As you start with your later sowings, so you can succeed sowings with them, they'll be better to put them out, planted out nice and deep in a prepared bed with your lime, etc., and your covers for your autumn and sort of Christmas harvests of Brussels sprouts. But that's a good one to start with. Now in February as well is spinach. Started these off in little individual cell trays, sort of 2 or 3 per cell tray, sort of station sown, very much like Charles Dowding does. Do be aware, as these start to germinate, you want to get them out, and again, just may be aware of, they are quite cold tolerant, but they may suffer some checkbacks if you get some frost. So just be aware that you will need to probably get them covered with some fleece. This is a variety called Matador. Another great one is also called Medania, for early sowings as well. So spinach. Also for station sown is radish. Radish is great now. I've just gone down to the allotment today and I've just done a couple of rows with also some lettuce. Another really great crop to try now. I haven't got a lettuce packet with me right now, but I'd try Tom Thumb. So radish and lettuce. These are great. I try and think about carrying a packet of either lettuce or spring onions, again, another one from January into February, we can carry on sowing, so that when you sow anything else, like your broad beans, which you can carry on sowing into February too, try and do a line in between the sowings of where you put the beans of things like lettuce and things like spring onions and radish, just to try and get those crops that are intercropping with the other sort of longer season crops, because space is really a premium. And it's great to try and get these intercropping. It cuts down on your weeding because hopefully they'll outcompete the weeds, but also you can get a little quick harvest while the other things are growing to maturity. So good idea there with your radish. And lastly for today, beetroot, the old trusty Bolt Hardy. This is a great one to start now in February. A little bit of pushing this envelope a little bit, getting them started in February. Station sow them. Try and maybe see if you can bring them on in the house first, if you can, or in a heated propagator or similar. Obviously, you can't really transplant these out because they are a root crop, and keep potting them on. So you have to go in kind of the cell or the growing medium that you're going to plant them out eventually. So they're a great one now for February. Take a little bit of warmth to get them going, but once you do, if you can get these out, you get a little bit of an advance on the season. You can get these in, and if you sow them in clumps, and obviously take the larger ones as you harvest them. But do remember when you plant these, it's always a good idea to sow another row. You might find that the row that you sow catches up with the ones that you put in as little mini plants. But that's not a bad thing. You get double the harvest, but it also kind of gets you into the habit of sowing seed at the time that you're transplanting little mini plants, to try and get that succession sowing in place, so that you're getting a good harvest throughout the year rather than just a glut all at once. Try and leave sort of 2 weeks between sowings or transplantings and sowings at the same time. So that's sowings for February. I'd be really interested to know what you're sowing now for February. Are you pushing the envelope a little bit? Are you really chancing your arm, see if you can get some crops started really early? Or are you just going to hold off until maybe the end of the month or beginning of March? Have you got some new varieties that you're trying this year, or have you got some tried and tested stalwarts that you rely upon every year? Comment in the comments below. Otherwise, if you've liked the video today, it'd be grateful if you give it a thumbs up. We'll see you next time. Bye.